We'll try to get through it. There's a lot of information here. Dementia and Alzheimer's, fastest growing diseases in the United States. A lot that you may not be aware of, but I want to cover this with you. 1 over 9 over the age of 85, over the age of 65, 1 over 2 over the age of 85. So this is rapidly approaching, if you're over the age of 65, many of you guys know that my mother-in-law is 70, just was diagnosed, so I'm hearing more and more as I interact with many of you. This is not an isolated thing. It's happening to a lot of us. Here's a scary thing. By the time the symptoms start to surface, it's already been developing, like for 10 years, for a good decade before the first signs are evident. So this is what we have to dig into tonight. Like, what can we do to prevent this? And really, as I always say with any disease, the only way to really wrap your mind around this is to kind of live your life like you actually have it. Like you've actually already been diagnosed with the condition, and you take it that seriously that you start doing all these steps that we're going to talk about proactively. And that's really the only way that you could prevent it. 500,000 new cases diagnosed this year. 1 out of 3 seniors dies with Alzheimer's or dementia. It kills more than breast cancer or prostate cancer combined. Let that settle in. Every 65 seconds, someone in the United States develops the disease. And between 2000 and 2017, the deaths from Alzheimer's increased 145%. So is this something that's getting worse? Yeah, it's getting worse. And unfortunately, it's coming to a home close to many of us. And again, we don't know who, we don't know how, we don't know when. Tonight, we're going to learn how and what we could do and how important it is to start making sure that you check all the boxes. You have a handout. The handout that we're going to follow is the last page. If you don't have a handout, raise your hand and somebody will come around and give you a copy. That last page says what? Bright Minds. You see the acronym? Bright Minds? So we're going to follow that tonight. A little bit different, slightly different format than we usually do. But as we go along, I'm going to kind of develop each point just a little bit. But more important than our understanding, which when we go through it, you'll probably be like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I need to do that. But then I'm going to give you some application. I'm going to talk to you about maybe some lifestyle changes, nutrition. I'm going to recommend some supplements. May recommend some testing that could be appropriate for the particular condition that we're talking about. Testing sometimes is appropriate for certain patients with different conditions. Now, it used to be way back when, we've been doing these workshops for 20 years now, every month for the last 20 years. So we've been doing this for a while. Many of you have been coming here, and every month we talk about lifestyle changes, eating good, exercising, proper spinal alignment, proper nerve supply, and then we talk, supplements. How many of you guys take supplements? Oh, like everybody takes supplements, right? And the prevalent mindset that I want you to leave here tonight with is taking supplements it's not just a good idea. Like these days, it's an absolute requirement if you're serious about your health to take a supplement for many different reasons. But what I want you to leave here tonight knowing is that now, after 20 years, we finally have the technology that allows us to pinpoint what supplements are appropriate for which people. So like up to this point, a lot of us take supplements and we're like, oh, it's a good idea. But you don't know how much of what supplement you need and how much of another you don't. And there's really not a whole lot wrong with that, other than sometimes it just becomes expensive urine, as I like to say sometimes. For lack of a better term, sorry to be rough around the edges, but there's testing and technology that is available now that we're developing and we're using now, and we're starting to see the benefits of it saving a lot of people time and a lot of people money. And an analogy that I'm using more and more is like, you literally have the blueprint or the user's manual now available to you, Myra, right? To each of us individually in this room, the user's manual to exactly how God made your body and what you need and what you don't need. So that's what's cool about how we're going to make the application tonight. And I'll recommend some of these things, and you'll look into it, and if you have any questions, you'll ask me. So turn to your Bright Minds handout, and we're going to go through these one by one. Number 1 is what? B, blood flow. Is blood flow important? Yeah. So let's talk about blood flow. In a study, they found, this wasn't just yesterday, this has been around for a good number of years, they did a study with exercise in seniors. elderly individuals who engaged in 20 minutes of aerobic exercise 3 days a week versus a group that didn't actually exercise, they just did stretching and toning 3 times a week for the same period of time. And what they find at the end of the study, those who exercised that did aerobic activity 30 minutes 3 times a week, their brain volume actually increased. They made growth hormone in their brain called BDNF. And what they found was the people who did the stretching and the toning, guess what happened with their brains? Did it increase? It shrunk. It actually decreased. So is stretching a good idea? Yeah, I do it every morning. But there's no substitute for blood flow and blood supply to your brain to prevent dementia and Alzheimer's. Do we got that? Yeah. Okay, so everybody knows it's a good idea to exercise. And there's many of you in here are doing really, really well. This is a huge key for preventing brain degeneration. If you're not exercising, you're missing a big piece. It's like eating soup with a fork. You've got to, at some point, get on some sort of exercise plan. And it does not cost anything other than the taxes you pay to use that sidewalk. There are no excuses, right? I always say, get out and shake your tail feather. At least how long? 20 minutes. 3 days a week. They did that for a year, and that's it. The research is out. Exercising more than once annually is indicated for good health. So this is what we want to do. Now, Orange Theory was kind enough to putting your hand out there, a free workout. So to boot, you have something waiting for you, a freebie right across the street right there. The owner, her name is Barb, and she's a patient here. And she's opening the doors for you guys to come in, check the place out, and let them see and evaluate what may be good for you. So use that, and I highly encourage that if you don't have a place to exercise or plan or whatnot, go introduce yourself. I think it'll be worth your while. Okay, so retirement. What is retirement? R is for retirement and aging. Some of you guys just recently retired, and you're not looking for stuff to do. You're more busy in retirement than you were when you were in the workforce, right? It's amazing how that works. So I guess I'm preaching to the choir. All right, well, next one. No, not so fast, okay? Not so fast. We could be busy doing all kinds of stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're challenging our brain. You could be busy with all kinds of activities during the day. It doesn't mean that you're actually exercising your brain. When you go to the gym and you like lift or you push your heart cardiovascularly, there's a challenge there. And when I had a personal trainer and I was training for the Disney Marathon, or I had my trainer, create these different workouts for me, they weren't easy. Like now, I've got a lot less challenge because I'm not accountable to anybody. So, but when I was training with my trainer, he sent me a sheet every week, and he'd give me the workout, and I'd have to, while I was working out, fill the thing out so that he could get feedback on my perceived rate of exertion. Like, how hard was this pushing me out of my comfort zone? And guess what happened during that period of time when I was training and I was accountable to actually pushing myself? Guess what happened? I grew. I grew in my cardiovascular capacity. My energy was off the charts, and I was never so fit in my life. But I remember distinctly, doing my running workouts or my bike workouts. I did running when I was doing the Disney Marathon. This was back like 15 years ago. But then later, my back started taking a beating, so I switched to the bike. And, he put together the same workouts, and I remember doing the bike and switching gears, and I'd have to, switch and go on up another gear, and, my perceived rate of exertion on a scale of 1 to 10 was like 8, sometimes 9. And I'm like, I can't do this for very long, but I couldn't quit. And then the next time I did the workout, a couple of days later, he changed it up on me again. And I didn't have time to go back. But lo and behold, I remember that I'd get to this level of fitness that I'd be like, wow, I can't believe my body is adapted like that. What was hard and struggling for me before, I could leave these kids 20 years of age in the dust. And here I was in my 40s. And I did. I remember being at a camp, and I was doing a leadership camp, and I was out on the bike, and I was amazed at what my body had done. It was really a test for my level of physical fitness. I don't know why I'm talking about this so long about physical fitness. We're talking about mental fitness. Hopefully you can see the point is the same. If you don't challenge your brain, it will not stretch and it will not grow. And there is a part of us that needs to understand that your brain is flexible, it's adaptable, and you can grow new neurons. And they know that now. But you have to push that. So challenge your brain, learn to play a new instrument. There was a patient of mine not too long ago. He's planning on retiring in 6 months, but one of his plans was to learn how to play the piano. He just started 6 months before, knowing that he's going into retirement. So he's already engaging his brain. Learn an instrument. Does that challenge your brain? Yeah. Learn a new language. Play Sudoku, crossword puzzles, right? What else can you do? Come to the workshops. Hey. Next month, we have Heart Smart Nutrition. How many of you guys have been to Heart Smart Nutrition before? How many of you guys agree that the Heart Smart Nutrition is probably one of the most empowering workshops that you could probably have attending more and more and more, to where you stand confident to have those conversations with your doctor about reducing, getting off your cholesterol or blood pressure medication? The information that you get at that Heart Smart workshop, don't miss that. And that's going to be coming up here Monday, September 16th. We have, like every workshop that we do, in my mind, it's like going to be the most important workshop. You guys know that, you hear that all the time. But from the feedback I get from you, as far as being able to reduce and get off some of the prescriptions where you are aware of how important some of these side effects are and that they can be contributing to an accelerated aging process, this is the one. Don't miss it, and bring your friends, because you're going to be an encouragement. You're going to be helping a lot of people. So make sure you get one of these cards. If you don't have those cards, I've started handing those out to all of my new patients now. But if you don't have one, keep one of those. We'll have the new ones coming out soon. Next month or the month after, we'll have 2020 coming out. All right. So, bright minds. Where are we? We're on letter I. What is I? I stands for what? Inflammation. What does inflammation have to do with dementia, Alzheimer's? Well, it actually has to do with every degenerative disease. It has to do with diabetes, it has to do with heart disease. Inflammation is at the root cause of every degenerative illness. And also with that, a lot has to do with sugar. But we're going to circle back to that. I'm not going to go a whole lot into the sugar thing, because you're going to learn something new tonight relative to the sugar and your glucose levels and how it goes into dementia and Alzheimer's. But let's talk about inflammation. What are the main things that, on a daily basis, we're kind of exposing ourselves that drives inflammation? Inflammation at the cellular level, not just in your body, but in your brain. What are these things? Trans fats, margarine, synthetic butters, which, if you've been coming to these workshops, nobody in this room who's been coming to workshops has this stuff in their kitchen anymore, right? Right. No, it's not in your refrigerator. You didn't give it away to your neighbors. You don't want to hurt anybody else. Hydrogenated oils, cottonseed oil, soybean oil. These are hidden. Again, if you're not reading the label, you're going to miss those. When you look at soybean oil and cottonseed oil, they seem less harmful. They seem like they would kind of fly under the radar there. Vegetable oils. Anytime you see vegetable oil, this is something that triggers inflammation. Hidden. You go out to, like one of my favorite places, La Bamba. Not giving anybody plugs, but I've been going there for 25 years. One of my favorite places to eat. We go there a lot. And they'll make fajitas. And you could have the chicken and the vegetables. No rice, no beans. Seemingly, a good meal. That's not going to cause any sort of fat storage, right? But they cook it in the hydrogenated oils. What happens? Well, my belly gets flabby. I don't know about yours, but that's the effect that inflammation has. And so when you have these oils, if you go out to a restaurant and they're cooking in them, it's affecting you. If you're cooking in vegetable oil, we could be doing better, right or right? What should we be cooking in? Extra virgin olive oil at low heat. You can cook in coconut oil. But if we're not, you're still allowing these harmful things to cross the threshold of your mouth and affect your brain and every cell in your body, driving the degenerative process, which causes the onset of dementia and the increased likelihood of dementia and Alzheimer's. You see how this all works together? We have to be very, very careful. If we're serious about this, remember, if you're not doing something to prevent it, you could very well be allowing the development of it, especially if you have the genes predisposing you to that. which you don't know probably, most of you. Toxins, metals, pesticides, we're going to talk about that, drive inflammation. Why are all these things driving inflammation? Well, at a cellular level, if you look at these two little turquoise cells down there, the good one has the cell wall, the integrity of it, intact. And when the cell wall's intact, it's permeable and all the good stuff can get in, all the nutrients can get in, and all the toxins can make their way out. But when you have these things that are made in a laboratory, they're just not naturally occurring in nature, they're inflammatory like sugar and these pesticides and lead and mercury. When they hit the cell wall, it's like a grenade going off. And it detonates and destroys the integrity of the cell wall. It causes inflammation, injury, right? And what happens is the cell wall loses its function. And now the good stuff can't get in and the bad stuff can't get out. And now you have a recipe for cellular shutdown. You lose the cellular energy, it affects the DNA, it stops the ability for the cell to heal and repair itself, and this whole downward process starts because of what? Inflammation. So we got our eye. What do we have to do? Reduce the what? Inflammation. First, before you solve the problem, I read last night a quote from Albert Einstein. If I had, what do you say? If I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes on identifying the problem, the cause of it, and 5 minutes on the solution. It does make sense. We're too busy running around like chickens without a head trying to put out a fire. We really don't understand what the cause is. Read the labels. So when we read the label, what does it show us? Partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, right? Cornstarch, hydrogenated oils. It lurks right there on the labels. How many of you guys have been getting better and better at reading labels? There's nothing in your pantry that doesn't have a label on it that you didn't inspect before it hit your house. Good for you, because it's that important. That's what's inflaming the brain right there. And all those foods that go with it, obviously, some of them seemingly healthy, but many of them very unhealthy. What's another way that we can decrease the inflammation? Increase the good fats, yeah. Monounsaturated oils, olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, anti-inflammatory. Almonds, walnuts. When we look at all these, again, how much of this are you using on a daily basis? Avocados, fatty fish, whether it be tuna fish or sardines, fish oil capsules. Are you getting adequate amounts of this in your diet every day intentionally, or is it happening by chance or haphazardly? If it's happening by chance or haphazardly, again, we may not have that proactive solution that we need to stave off early brain degeneration. And it's time, again, based on our discussion today, that we start taking this a little bit more seriously. If you have brain degeneration that runs in your family, you should be loading up on EPA, DHA, curcumin, some of these supplements that we're going to talk about, especially if you have the genes that run in your family. If we can identify if you have those genes, you need to take careful consideration in making sure that you shut those genes off that are causing Alzheimer's or support the ones that'll kill it off. So Ultraplex EPA, it's got EPA and DHA in it. Talk about bang for the buck. It's not only good for your heart, look at all these things, lowers your blood pressure, prevents arrhythmia, lowers triglycerides, prevents blood clots. It's an immune system booster, prevents cancer, prevents depression, wards off mental decline, counteracts inflammation. So you should be taking at least 2 of these a day. Everybody really should have some level of this support, at least 1 a day, maybe 2 a day. For some of you, if you have a genetic predisposition, it's probably going to look more like 2 capsules twice a day. But again, everybody's different. So the cell wall, every cell wall in your brain and your body, what is the cell wall made up of? Fat. What particular fat? DHA. The EPA and the DHA, your brain is 30% DHA. That's why you need this to help the brain regenerate, and every cell membrane is regenerated with these constituents. They did a study, they found the people with memory complaints who took EPA and DHA for 6 months had almost double the reduction in errors on tests measuring learning and memory performance versus those who took a placebo. The benefit was roughly equivalent to having learning and memory skills of someone 3 years younger. How many of you guys want to look, feel, and function 3 years younger? I want 10 or 20, but I'll start with 3. So there's research supporting this. There's definitely research supporting how it helps with depression and a number of things. But this is one of those basic foundational supplements that really helps on many different levels. Curcumin we talk about a lot. It's on our cancer prevention workshop. It's on our Heart Smart workshop. Why? Because it's got more literature backing it as an anti-inflammatory naturally than anything else. Personally, I take 2 of these every single day. And again, that's an easy no-brainer for most of us in the room. But again, if you have the genes that show you have a problem with, oxidation and free radicals and your body quenching those, and you may need more support. And again, it all has to do with your genetic predisposition. So what are your current markers at? What are your inflammatory markers at? What are your vitamin D levels at? And the reason why this question begs to be asked, because if you're taking supplements, that's a good start. But again, you really don't know. Linda, you're back there. You were just telling me earlier today that your CRP levels have come down from the last time you tested it. And you've been taking the curcumin, and this is a patient who actually looks at those levels. So Linda's been taking supplements, she's been coming to workshops for years and years, but she's using the tests to eliminate the guesswork. Because the test before that, it showed it was up a little bit. And she had to take proactive measures. So this is one way that you can do that. So when you go for blood work, the doctor will do like the general stuff, but they don't always do the CRP. Vitamin D test, sometimes it's in there. But the reason why they put these two together, the vitamin D and the CRP, is those inflammatory markers and those vitamin D markers will show us how predisposed you are to heart disease and cognitive decline. So those levels are going to be shown, and you can see that under where it says test results. You know, if you're under 32 on vitamin D, you're in the danger zone. It's got to be over 32. If you're over 3 for your CRP, that's a problem. That's a problem. You really need, that'll tell you if you really need to take action now or later. So the testing kit is something that we do here in the office. It's a finger prick. It's a blood test. They prick your finger, you get a little blood. We send it into the lab and we get the report back. And I can give you recommendations for all these supplements, but again, this is something that will easily tell you what you need and what you don't need. Does that make sense? Okay. Especially when it comes to inflammation in your body and your brain. Heart disease, cancer, diabetes, cognitive decline, it all has to do with these tests. G is for genetics. This is really important here. G is for genetics. How many of you have learned here already that it's not your genes that determine your fate? How many of you guys have learned that? It's not your genes. We all have heart disease, we all have cancer, we all have diseases that run in our family. Diabetes runs in our family, right? It's not your genes. If a disease runs in your family and you have those genes, your predisposition to actually manifesting that based on your genes that you have inherited is less than 5%. 95% is what you do to expose your body and your cells to an environment that's going to actually foster those genes to express themselves or shut them down, down-regulate them. It all has to do with what? Lifestyle, yeah, lifestyle. So we now know that if you can identify those weak genes or those strong genes, then you can support them with the type of exercise that you need, supplements and things to down-regulate those genes or shut them off if they're going to be predisposing you towards something like Alzheimer's or dementia. So we want to look at, in particular, which genes that we're talking about, because you have Alzheimer's promoting genes that can be turned on, and you have Alzheimer's promoting genes that can be turned what? Off. Alzheimer's fighting genes can be turned on, and Alzheimer's fighting genes can be turned off. Which ones do we want to influence the most? Yeah, number 2 and 3. The promoting genes turning off and the fighting genes turning on. So how do we know that? Well, in a gene testing report, they identify a number of genes, and there's an explanation in terms of each one as far as whether it's bone health or inflammation health, cardiovascular health. And when you read the report, it gives you an explanation as far as if that gene has no impact on the biological area in question, if it has low impact, which wouldn't really make much of a difference, if there's a moderate impact or a high impact, you need to concern yourself with that. And it says attention should be paid and some dietary and lifestyle changes are recommended. And those are the ones where when we look and we see a test, can you see on the bottom line, if you go over to gene impact, you see how it shows 3 hearts there? This is a patient that really needs to pay attention to this. This has to do with oxidative stress health. Now, again, it gives you a pretty good summary of how this affects your health. Free radicals are really going to be related to oxidative stress. And if your body cannot handle the oxidative stress, free radicals have free run. You're increasing your risk of cancer, you're increasing your risk of inflammation, and you're increasing your risk of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. So I won't get into the science of how this really occurs at this point, but what I want you to see is this just shows you basically, brings it down to a pretty basic level, how you have to have a balance between, oxidation and reactive oxidation. The antioxidants are important because they balance oxidation. How many of you guys have heard of antioxidants? When you have antioxidant support, it quenches the free radicals and it stops things from getting out of balance in your body, which would trigger inflammation and damage to your DNA. And what this particular aspect of the report shows is that this is a person that has a problem in that area, and that they really need extra support as far as oxidative stress health goes. So this is a person that would want to pay particular attention to support with vitamin C, vitamin E, carotenoids, polyphenols, and free radical scavengers. This is a person that would want to have a significant amount of extra antioxidant support in their body. Now, are antioxidants good for all of us? Yes. But for somebody who doesn't have that level of gene impact, they don't need to pay as significant attention, probably don't need to spend a whole lot of money on supplements supporting that. Does that make sense? So that's important for what we're talking about tonight. Here's another gene, IL-6, TNF, inflammation health. The IL-6 for this patient shows a moderate gene impact. So this is a person that's going to have a problem controlling inflammation. And that's a person who, that's a patient that would be recommended to take the curcumin, the Ultraplex curcumin, 2 caps twice a day. If they had 3 of those little hearts, might tell them to take 3 capsules twice a day. Because this is a person that has basically a genetic weakness in that area. Making sense?
Yeah.
Here's one that has to do with detoxification. Does detoxification have anything to do with developing dementia and Alzheimer's? You better believe it, yeah. When we're toxic, it's in our brain, a big part of that. And it doesn't come out unless you intentionally get it out. But look at the gene impact on 3 of these here. CYP1A1, GSTM1, GSTP1, look at these. 2, 3. I mean, on a report like this is an area that needs to be taken seriously and urgently being supported to turn the disease-fighting genes on and the disease-promoting genes off. And again, this is where we can get very, very specific. When I do a report like this, I sit down and I actually map out exactly which supplements and what lifestyle changes need to be done. When we talk about the user's manual for your body, to see exactly how God made it, that's a good glimpse into what's going on now and what may be coming down the pike that we want to prevent. You see the value in that? That's pretty neat stuff. So again, it's as simple as a cotton swab in the inside of your mouth. And we send that off, we get the sample to the lab, we get a complete report back, and then you'll know what's what. If that's something that interests you, again, I want to make sure that you understand the availability of that. Like I said before, we've been taking supplements, we know how important it is, but this takes the specificity of it to a whole nother level. And that's what's important for everybody to understand. Genes are important, but it's even more important to identify which genes. H is for head trauma. Okay. Can head trauma cause, to put a person on a path for dementia? Mm-hmm. Now, I played this video in the office for a little while. Not everybody saw it. So I want to put it on. It's just a 2-minute video. This is with Jim McMahon. He was a famous NFL quarterback. So just watch it for a minute, and I'm going to point out a couple of things that you weren't aware of, but I want to watch this so that you understand what the important parts of this are. And as usual, I always need to put this the second time.
There we go. This is what I do to try to keep my brain sharp during the day. I've got these puzzles, and it helps me to just try to remember things, you know, colors and where things go. Well, I knew I was missing a couple of pieces. You know, the doctor actually told me that this would actually be good for me to help keep my brain sharp and functioning, because at times it tends to wander.
Jim McMahon is 56 years old. He now spends most of his time in his Scottsdale, Arizona home, where the dry desert air best suits his long list of post-football aches and pains.
This is my daily routine. What am I doing? What am I looking for?
Life
But what
after
the climate can't
trauma.
combat are the symptoms associated with brain trauma McMahon suffered as a player.
Bad headaches, pressure on my skull. I couldn't see very well. I couldn't talk very well. All I wanted to do was lay down, because my head was just constantly pounding. The pain had gotten so bad where if I had had a gun, I wouldn't have been here. And these two doctors from New York called me and said, "Hey, we think we can help you. We think we know what's going on." I
Chiropractors.
said, "Let's do it."
Jim was diagnosed with early onset dementia. He had been complaining about a brain fog, as he described it, as well as he described it, a headache where he felt like ice picking on both sides of his brain.
While most concussion studies are focused on the brain, McMahon's team traces the effects of CTE directly to the upper spine, having found that neck misalignment can block the flow of spinal fluid and
About
pull
that.
toxic proteins directly onto the brain.
Spinal fluid is white, and that's the spinal cord.
Look at the degeneration in his neck.
This is the spinal column. What you're seeing is a narrowing of the opening where the spinal fluid is supposed to come through.
Most times when you're having head problems, that's all they look at is the head. These guys are smart enough to at least look below the head at the neck and see if there was a problem somewhere, and they found my problem. They're not going to be able to reverse the damage. Like I said, that stuff was sitting in there for 20 years. So how much it ate away at my brain, I don't know.
Using detailed images captured by the MRI scans, McMahon regularly receives targeted adjustments, clearing the blockage and restoring the flow of spinal fluid.
The top bone in the neck.
This instrument is going to generate a gentle mechanical tapping.
Right on the brainstem.
They're going to put those bones right back into normal condition.
Just a little tap. That's all.
Okay. Going to sit back up.
First time they did this procedure, within 2 minutes, it was like the toilet flush. I could feel this stuff actually leaving my brain. My eyes cleared up, my speech cleared up.
The left is before, the right is after. So you see how much there is there?
Look at the volume. Look at the volume of the brain.
Instead of all this white stuff being there, we're seeing more brain tissue than fluid.
Yep.
So it's already started to drain. Over the next several days, it'll improve more.
What damage it's done, it's done. I can't reverse that. But what these guys do for me, they keep me from having these bad pains, having these suicidal thoughts, having me function fairly normally while I can't.
So, I don't know if you got that, but there was one thing in there where he said he lost the curve in his neck. You saw his neck was straight. How many of you guys remember seeing something like that? Okay. When the neck goes straight, it stretches the spinal cord and it sucks the brainstem down into the bony canal. And he said something which is connected with dementia and Alzheimer's. Toxic proteins on the brain. So they've already done studies on that. They know that when proteins become toxic in the brain, that's the beginnings of the dementia and the Alzheimer's. All Alzheimer's patients have one thing in common: the neuro entanglement of the fibrils there, the neural fibers, which are toxic proteins. And what they said in that video is that the trauma to his neck made his neck straight, and it created a pressure where it was sucking toxic proteins into the brain. You got that? So can damage to your neck or your spine cause early dementia or Alzheimer's? Yes. Can chiropractic care prevent that? Yes. Every single adjustment. When you guys are on the table, and you're like, oh, what is that? What is that? What are you doing? I'm looking at the temperature. Guess which bone I'm checking? The same one that he adjusted with the stylus up there, that top bone in the neck, because your brainstem goes through there. It protects the brainstem. It's supposed to protect the brainstem, but if it's out of alignment and it's putting pressure on the brainstem, and that stays there uncorrected, you may not feel it, but if it starts sucking toxic proteins onto your brain, guess what? That's not the direction that we want to go. So how valuable is it, every single adjustment? If you've ever heard me say, you're getting younger with every adjustment. How many of you guys ever heard that? I wasn't lying, was I? Yeah. So every time we move that top bone, that atlas bone, what bone? Atlas bone, yeah. You remember, like, Atlas held up the world in Greek mythology? Little 2-ounce bone holds up a 15-pound bowling ball. And there's no disc above or below, it's only ligaments. So head trauma damages the ligaments, makes them unstable, never the same. Then people come in here, they're 40, 50, 60 years old, never had a chiropractic adjustment. You're never going to be perfect. But I guarantee you one thing, the people who stay under chiropractic care and get their adjustments ongoingly, they're the ones who have the fewest visits to the doctors, they take the least amount of medication, least trips to the hospitals. Is that starting to make sense? You guys understand why? There's nothing more powerful in terms of preventive program for your health than chiropractic care. T is for toxins. What goes on your body goes in your body. So, looking at a cell, a normal cell on the left and an Alzheimer's disease cell on the right, you can see a big difference, can you?
Yeah.
What do you see different? Well, you know, it looks sick. The cell wall isn't as clearly defined. So the cell is kind of breaking down on itself. It's almost like imploding. And the reason why that happens is because the cell becomes toxic, it's overloaded. It's like a bathtub running over. There's nowhere for it to go. And more bad stuff is coming in than the good stuff is. And you have an overload. There's inflammation of the cell. There's malfunction of the cell membrane. And the cell can no longer produce its own energy because the mitochondria inside the cell makes the energy. And you have this methylation cycle, which inside the cell is responsible for rejuvenating it, giving it its energy, protecting and making DNA, RNA. It's almost like having maid service in your house every day. Wouldn't that be nice? Okay, so that's what we have going on in our cells every single day. There's renewal, there's refreshment, there's vitality, or at least it's supposed to be that way. When your cells become toxic, that stops. You lock in the front door, house cleaning can't get in anymore. And it just builds up really quick. Got the picture? Yes. Okay, so I want you to see how important the methylation process is. First of all, it regulates genes, genetic expression. The processes of chemicals and toxins, builds neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, all those neurochemicals which actually create our moods, for better or for worse. Metabolizes hormones like estrogen and testosterone. It's important for your immune system. Synthesis of DNA and RNA, this is all part of the methylation process. Produces energy, CoQ10. How many of you guys have heard of that? ATP, which is your energy, right? The methylation process is what helps to support all these functions. And the coating on our nerves, myelination, which enables the nerves to fire. So, methylation is important, yes or yes? So that's what's breaking down inside the cell. That's what comes to a screeching halt. That's why you're sick. That's why you're tired. That's why you feel old. Because this is not working. What stops it? Well, over time we have a buildup of all these things. And there's 3 major toxins that research is now coming in, bringing into the light. And I want to cover them with you so that we're all on the same page. It's mercury, lead, and pesticides. Mercury, lead, and pesticides. These are the 3 main toxins that'll destroy your body and your brain. And the biggest problem with flushing out. So it's easy to get in, not so easy to get out. Let's talk about the first one, pesticides, glyphosate. Anybody ever heard of Roundup? Yeah. The active ingredient in Roundup is glyphosate. So I won't get into the whole Monsanto thing. We know there's politics, we know there's changes going on. But the reality is that between from 1989 to 2009, there's a 20-year study. They found a 100% correlation with the application of glyphosate in crops, particularly soy and corn, and the amount of deaths from senile dementia. And why is that? Because what glyphosate does, this particular toxin, it opens the blood-brain barrier. And all the other toxins that are swimming around in our body and in our environment that we're in, It opens up the blood-brain barrier and it lets that party start inside our brain. And once it goes in the brain, it doesn't want to get out. So that's why this is so destructive. What do they use soy and corn for? Almost everything today. Yeah. What are they feeding the fish? What are they feeding the cows? What are they feeding the chickens? We're in that food chain, guys. And, not to mention the French fries, the burgers, the breads, high fructose corn syrup. Good Lord. We won't get into it, but you got to understand that our generation is really being affected by this big time. We look at all the kids with autism and learning disabilities and behavioral disorders. Look at what's going on in the world today. This is a big part of the chemical imbalance, this and sugar. So you got the point. Studies have been correlated with senile dementia, early death, and the application of glyphosate, the application of these pesticides. So pesticides shuts down methylation. It stops your body from being able to have ongoing healthy cellular function. The second one is lead. Where does lead come from? I mean, lead, what does that have to do with anything? Like, when we talk about lead, it's like the furthest thing from your mind. They don't have lead in paint anymore. They don't have lead in gasoline anymore. Well, guess what studies found? That it goes on 4 generations. Gets passed on in utero. When they dissected umbilical cords from kids, they found that newborns were found to have the majority of the chemicals, like 280 out of 300 super toxic chemicals, were in almost every umbilical cord. And many of them were found with lead. The vast majority were found with lead. Kids have never been exposed to lead. How? Because when you have hormonal changes, when you're pregnant, elderly, when your body has changes with the hormones, it gets dumped out of the bones where it's stored and flushed into your body. And anytime they do studies of early death with this in the elderly, they always find significantly higher lead levels in the people who die early. So as you age, your bones release stored lead, leads to heart disease, high blood pressure, Alzheimer's, weight gain, can be a significant source of health problems. And again, where is it lurking? Well, if it's not in the paint and in the gas anymore, don't be fooled. There is lead in the water supply. In addition to chlorine, there's lead in our cosmetics. When you go and you analyze the lipstick samples, the last time they did a study, they found 20 out of 33 lipsticks had lead in there. So this isn't a one-hit wonder, but we put that stuff on. What goes in our body, what toxins go on our body, go in our body, because your skin is an organ. And the third one we said is mercury. So mercury. So dental studies show this. The more amalgam fillings that are present in your mouth, the more you're going to have where? In your brain, your kidneys, your heart, and your liver. I've showed the video. How many of you guys have seen the video of the smoking tooth? If you haven't seen the video and you want to see a real life demonstration of a tooth with an amalgam filling, on the video you'll see he'll rub it with an eraser, kind of like when you get a cleaning at the dentist's office and you see mercury vapor rising off of it. So anytime you have hot liquids, coffee, tea, you go for a cleaning and it releases mercury vapors from the amalgam fillings, they go to your brain. If you have one amalgam filling, you've exceeded the EPA allowable safety levels. If you have multiple, you should consider having them safely removed, safely by a dentist that knows how to do it holistically, because otherwise it's just going to kick up a big storm. It's interesting how I've become aware of when patients just get sick out of the blue for no reason, because it's very unusual for my long-term patients under chiropractic care, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, they can't even remember the last time they got sick, right? Some of you guys know what I'm talking about. And then every once in a while, somebody out of the blue will say, yeah, I don't know what happened. I just got sick out of nowhere. I never get sick. They had a dental cleaning the week before. Oh. Woo, yeah. And then they got an infection. It's just something, it just brought out of the woods there. So, also, while we're on the subject of mercury, where else do they put mercury or thimerosal in? Vaccines. A lot more back then. It's still in vaccines now. If the pediatricians or the doctors recommend it for you or your grandchildren, always insist on looking at the box, because they can tell you one thing, but the proof is in the box. How many patients that I've had that have asked to look at the box, and it says on the box thimerosal in flu shots and the childhood immunizations. All kids who get immunized have toxicity levels that you would not believe because of the ingredients that they put in those toxins. Now, I won't get into the vaccination debate. That's not what I do. I'm one of those people who kind of support free choice. I'll give you the information. It's up to you guys like I did last time. But you cannot underestimate the toxic burden that a child takes on from that stuff, and then all throughout adulthood. And before you know it, the bucket's overflowing. And they got all these types of problems. Now they're showing dementia rearing its ugly head with people in their 40s because of this. Incidentally, if you've had 5 or more consecutive flu shots, you've increased your risk of Alzheimer's by more than 10 times. Did you hear that? 5 or more consecutive flu shots. Leading immunogeneticists have done studies and found this. You've increased your risk of Alzheimer's by more than 10 times. Never, ever, 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 ever get a flu shot. There's no scientific studies supporting the fact that it extends life or prevents problems. It's a hoax. You can do your research, but it seems like everybody's kind of aware of that. So we live in this toxic soup, and the question is never, are you toxic? The only question is, how toxic are you right now? And we live in this stuff. There's formaldehyde in the mattress, there's chlorine and lead in the water, you have sodium lauryl sulfate, what makes the suds in your soap and your shampoo and your toothpaste, and all this stuff is shown to cause cancer in laboratory animals. We're putting it on our skin. There's mold some of us are exposed to, or we've been exposed to. So basically, all this stuff goes in, but the question is it coming out? And remember, when more goes in than your body can actually get out, that's when it starts overflowing. If your bucket's overflowing, you're probably having symptoms: fatigue, weight loss resistance, forgetfulness. It could mimic signs of dementia. And again, this is why toxicity must be addressed. If you have not engaged in some level of detox process, now's the time you want to consider this as we go through this. So there's 2 forms of detoxification that I recommend for my patients. I'm going to give you the first one, which is really the only true detoxification. There's a lot of people that do colon cleanses and different forms. If I had a nickel for every detox program I've heard of, right? How many of you guys everybody's got one, apple cider vinegar, this, that. Everybody creates their own cocktail of it. But the thing that needs to be considered is, number one, are you preparing the body for detoxification? Are you preparing the liver, the lymphatic system, the kidneys, all the glands? Are you preparing it to actually properly remove those sources? Number 2, are you actually not just pulling it out of the cells in the body, but are you actually getting it out in the stool? Because if you're not giving it the right binder, and there are people using cilantro and different sorts of pectin and stuff like that, thinking that it's a binder, and those are not effective binders. There's a special binder that it goes in your colon and it mops up and it takes everything, all those toxins that you pulled out of the cells in the brain, and it eliminates it. It gets it out through your stool. Otherwise, what happens if you don't get it out? Reintoxication. So that has to be considered. And then last but not least, are you getting the toxins out of the brain? If you don't have the special constituents to open the blood-brain barrier, nothing doing. Anybody can, do any sort of cleanse. But if you're not opening up the blood-brain barrier and pulling those toxins out of your brain, you're never getting to the deepest levels. You're never going to correct the pituitary gland, the hypothalamus, which regulates every other metabolic function in your body also. That's in your brain. How important is that? Right or right? Yeah. So the protocol for that you have to address removing the source from the cells, regenerating the cell membrane, restoring the cellular energy. The inflammation has to be addressed, restoring methylation, right? And so you need the right cellular support. You need the right supplements to actually do that. And that's very specific in terms of the intention behind that. Open and support the detox pathways, the lymph, the kidneys, the liver, the gut, and then use true binders, as I talked about. So that's really the proven protocol that our patients do. And let me tell you, when you do that right, it's like night and day. your energy, your clarity, you're getting up earlier, your energy is off the charts, your recall, it's just your brain is just moving a mile a minute once you clean up. That's a big difference. So that's a 90-day protocol. When you follow something like that, you need a full 30 days to prepare your body. all the supports, the supplements that go into preparing the body to be properly detoxed, you need a full 30 days for that. Then you go into another 30 days where you actually are detoxing and cleansing the body and the cells first. And then the final phase is the last 30 days where you're detoxing the brain. And that's really where the magic happens. So in between, you're getting tested to see the objective evidence-based results. But to start with, really to know how toxic are you or whether or not you really need to engage in this sort of protocol, you get tested. That's how you know. You're not guessing. It'll tell you how toxic that you are. There's a visual acuity test. The contrast sensitivity and the optic nerve is affected by toxins. So if you're trying to read a card at arm's length here, and there are lines, they go one way, they go another way, and you're toxic, you can't discern which way the lines are going. It's not like you can't see letters or numbers, but there's a certain point at which your visual contrast is compromised. Does that make sense? And so that's what that test on the right shows. The test on the left is a measurement of inflammation. And so basically, it's a urine test, and there's a reagent where we can measure how much oxidative stress there is in the cells. And then you put that color up against the chart, and it'll tell you how toxic that you are and how badly you do or don't need to do this. And then as you go through the test, we redo these tests so that you not only tell us that you're feeling better, but you can see the evidence of that inflammation subsiding and the toxins leaving. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's one way to address the toxins. Another way is a more general way. And I've spoken about this before with the Ultraplex Complete Clean. This and the Metaclear, the shakes basically have a complete multivitamin spectrum, antioxidant support, which is important for what we're talking about tonight, right? All your multivitamins, and it's also got something called N-acetylcysteine. Guess what N-acetylcysteine does? It boosts glutathione. Guess what glutathione does? It helps with methylation. Hello? You guys got that? So how important is glutathione? It's what's gonna engage the methylation process inside the cell. And what do you need to produce glutathione? N-acetylcysteine. So for a general daily detox, which supports your liver, your kidneys, to a lower level, a gentle way to do this, just a little bit on a daily basis, is this. The Ultraplex Complete Clean has 150 milligrams of the N-acetylcysteine. The Metaclear has 50 milligrams, but almost identical in terms of the vitamin and the antioxidant support. Both of them have 20 to 26 grams of protein, which is a great bang for the buck when you're looking for a meal replacement. And so every morning after I work out, I'll have 2 scoops of that, and I'll put it with almond milk or coconut milk, and I'll have myself a small plate of berries and some almond butter. And that's what we call the breakfast of champions. Woohoo! Good job. So I would strongly recommend that. It's a good place to start but if you're not sure, again, don't guess. Get tested. Get tested. So this is where the application of the testing comes in place. All right, I've talked myself up quite a bit tonight, haven't I? And I don't think we're halfway done through the slides. No, I'm just kidding. All right, ladies, we have some awards to hand out here. Everybody give my dynamic staff a big hand. All right, so we have perfect adjustment attendance to start with. And this is these awards go to folks who never, ever, 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 ever miss an appointment. And if they do, if they have to, they always give a heads up. They give a call so that nobody's here till 9 o'clock at night calling everybody. And they tell you how much they love and appreciate that. But as a result, most importantly, when people stick with their schedule and they get the best results. So we love seeing that with you guys. And we want to honor a few people here. When we call your name, just stand up, and we're going to crown you with a Medal of Honor. Wanda Bonilla, everybody give her a round of applause. Paulette O'Mealy. Annie Smith. Dennis Schoaf. Bonnie Lopez. Aaron Neuron. Carolyn. Yes. Carolyn. All right. Okay. Good. Everybody give them a big round of applause. And we have one more for 6 or more workshops. This is our university Core 4 degree. And this goes to Doug Kuhlman. There he is. Hi, Doug. 6 or more workshops. Constant and never-ending improvement. Man never goes stale. Good. All right. Well, let's do this. Let's just, the mind can only absorb what the seat can endure, right? Got a few more minutes to go. So just come and stand up, turn and face the person on your right for me. Put your hands on their shoulders. Wake them up. Wake them up. Give them a little massage. Good. Give them a massage. And a karate chop. Very nice. Does that feel good? Yeah. Awesome. All right, turn around. Love your other neighbor. Get that stress out. Good. Karate chop. Very nice. All right, give yourself a round of applause. Help me through these. Throw them out. Heads up. We got some love coming your way. Ready? Heads up. Woo! Oh! Yeah. Oh, you don't want to hit her. She's an attorney. That's all right. Yeah, that's right. She knows. All right, M is for mental health. So, what a good place to pick up on. Mental health. Hey, so, when you're under stress, what kind of hormonal changes occur in your body is something that starts with the letter C called cortisol starts going up. When cortisol goes up, bad things happen. Yeah, insulin goes up. You go out of fat burning, you go into fat storage. Studies now show, neuroscientists have shown that high levels of cortisol that never are allowed to come down to normal levels actually cause brain shrinkage and cause damage to the brain. So stress will do that. If you're always under stress and you're not managing your stress, you're increasing your risk of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. So maintain your morning rituals, because you got to fill up your cup every single day, because the world is going to be emptying it out. And if you don't start, you're going to go on empty. So what do we do? What do I do? What can I recommend for you to do? Just have some morning rituals. So how many of you guys are creatures of habit? You do kind of like the same ritual every morning, right? You wake up, you put on the coffee, you do this, you do that. I do the same exact thing. And I'm very thankful that I'm a person of ritual, because I do something called the spiritual triathlon. So I'll sit down with my cup of coffee, and I pray, and I read the Bible, and then I get up, and then I'll go and work out. And every single day. And it doesn't matter if I'm off on vacation, doesn't matter if I'm out of my environment, I have my ritual, I still do the same exact thing wherever I'm at, because that's just what we're supposed to do, And I can't overemphasize how important that is. Many of you guys, I'm looking at you, I think I'm talking to the right crowd here. We're believers from the standpoint knowing that your body is not yours. Your body is not your own. And so we are stewards of this body. And we are stewards of this life. that God has given us. And we're not supposed to worry. God has not given us a spirit of fear, right? The Bible says that we are to walk in faith. But we live in this world. And the problem is if we're not grounded and we're not anchored, one of my mentors once told me, who can anchor to an unanchored mind? You know, you've got to wake up in the morning and anchor yourself so that you're not a stumbling block for people who you could potentially lead to salvation and change their life. So you're either a stumbling block or you're a welcoming invitation to salvation, to true freedom, to peace, to really the only peace that somebody could know in their life. So you have peace with God and you have peace from God. And we're not all children of God until you know the truth. And there's only one truth, and there's only one place to find that. And that's why I start my day with that.
Amen.
All right, so that's all I want to say about that. And what you do with that is up to you, because I've got nothing to sell you on that. That's just who I am. That's just what I do, and that's the truth. I'm sharing the truth with you guys, and I want you to know the blessings that I know. I want you to know the God that I know, the God that provides for me faithfully. All that I've needed, His hand hath provided.
Amen.
So why not refresh yourself every morning with that in gratitude? That changes everything. That changes your reality. That changes what you attract in your life. That changes your body chemistry. Unplug during the day. Take a 15-minute nap. Go outside. Walk. Listen to music. Do whatever you got to do to make sure that you maintain that level of sanity. Take mini vacations. How many of you guys go away every once in a while? Every once in a while. I'll tell you, every once in a while I'll go away by myself. Like, all by myself. Like, I went to Sebring last weekend, and I love to take the kids with me. I love to camp out. You know, we camp out in our trailer, and I'm like, okay, so I'm going to Sebring. Who's coming with me? They're like, well, how long are you going for? Just overnight. Nah, we're not going. Not long enough. Like, all right, I'll be back tomorrow. And I can't tell you how relaxing it was. Driving over to Sebring, nice and relaxed, quiet, peace and quiet. The trailer was quiet. All I heard was crickets and birds. Quiet. I'm like, oh, this isn't that bad. You know, every once in a while, this is probably a good idea, you know? You got a date night every once in a while. You got family vacation every while. And then you got yourself time. You got a date with yourself. That's right. And if you don't schedule that, nobody else will. Turns out to be a good thing. All right. So let's talk about more along the lines of mental health. What can affect your mental health? Some of the medications that you may be taking. This is a slippery slope, and your doctors who've prescribed you these medications have done so with an intentional, specific purpose of controlling a disease or a disorder because that's their standard of care. But that doesn't go to say that they may not have side effects that cause dementia or can mimic dementia, like statin drugs, cholesterol drugs. Well known to cause memory lapses and confusion, right? You guys know this. That's why many of you keep coming to the Heart Smart Nutrition Workshop. And if you're not clear on that and you need more encouragement and support, make sure you're here next month. Anxiety, insomnia medications. A lot of patients on sleep medications, anxiety medications, antidepressants. Definitely induces that. Steroids, corticosteroids. A steroid shot in your shoulder, your knee. Yeah. It can cause that. I've seen people have problems with that. Pain medications, chemotherapy drugs. How many of you heard of chemo brain? How many of you heard of chemo brain? Oh my goodness. I am becoming increasingly aware of the effects of that more and more. As I've studied more of this, I see that. And I see it a lot. And it's real, guys. There is no such thing as a drug without a side effect. You know, so I realize there's a time and a place for it. Sometimes you got to do it, but not for the rest of your life. Not a good idea. For those of you guys who understand that, you let me know. Whatever else I can do to help you move in the right direction with this. That's what I'm here for. And there's always a way. Here's one, cardiovascular drugs. Metoprolol. Somebody told me today, got off of that. Good job. I've seen way too many people on that who have who were very forgetful, losing their memory. They were fine one day, they went on metoprolol, boom, it was like they start forgetting everything. What is that? Very common blood pressure medication. Some of you are sitting here right now on that, and you may be like, well, I don't think I have a problem with that. Well, not yet. Not yet. So if it was me, I'm just thinking remember what I said when I first started? If you don't know, it's not diagnosable it's got to be there at least 10 years progressing until it's diagnosable, right? How long do you want to wait to start getting started with this stuff? When do you think it's the right time? No. Come on, let's get real. That's what this is about tonight. Like yesterday, we should all be paying very careful attention to the potential side effects of all these meds. Just because you don't have it, it doesn't mean that it's not affecting you yet. 2012, FDA released a statement indicating cholesterol drugs cause side effects, cognitive side effects, memory lapses. I mean, everybody knows this now. Cholesterol and Parkinson's disease. People with the lowest LDL cholesterol were at increased risk for Parkinson's disease by 350%. So the longer you're on cholesterol medications, the lower your LDL goes, the higher your risk of Alzheimer's, the higher your risk of Parkinson's disease, and Lou Gehrig's. All the neurodegenerative disorders are accelerated by lowering your cholesterol. Why? What do nerves and brain cells need? Cholesterol. What are the cells made of? The cell membrane is made up of cholesterol, phospholipids, EPA, DHA. So when you strip that out of the body, you're provoking problems. So just remember this. Every time you go to the doctor, you get a blood test. Everybody always asks me, so it was another conversation I had today. So I got to do stuff to get my HDL up, but my LDL is here, and the question is always, what can I do to get my LDL down? I don't want to take my cholesterol meds. What's the answer? Come next month and find out. Come next month and find out. Because if you take that LDL down, you're gonna get more than you bargained for. Even if you use supplements and things natural. So stay tuned. Don't change the station. Java Power. Study found that coffee drinkers at midlife had lower risk for dementia and Alzheimer's later in life. So for those of you who are midlife right now, like Paul, right?
Well, I don't know, midlife. But...
Yeah, midlife. No crisis, just midlife. He's in the prime of his life, this guy, right here. Never lost a fight in his life. So the people who were drinking coffee 3 to 5 cups a day in their midlife had less chances of dementia and Alzheimer's later on in life. Lowest risk was found with the moderate coffee drinkers. 3 to 5 cups, I don't know if I would consider that moderate. But all right, more power to you, right? Okay, 1 or 2 cups, that's fine. And not the Ventis at Starbucks, okay? That doesn't count as a cup, right? That counts, I think, as like a half a dozen. And the thing about your favorite franchise coffee is that's not what they're talking about either, because that's loaded with what? Pesticides. Pesticides and sugar. Again, which is toxic, which is not what we're talking about. Mountain grown, like Blue Mountain from Jamaica, right?
All right.
If I wanted to give a plug there.
Yeah.
Any other organic, your favorite organic coffee, which doesn't have pesticides or other chemicals, you're good to go. It's got antioxidants, magnesium, chromium, vanadium, zinc. And what does coffee do that's good for the brain? It helps trigger BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is like growth hormone for your brain to build new brain cells. That's why the study panned out the way that it did. It enhances that. So if you do it in moderation, the studies are showing that it's okay. Again, use it, don't abuse it. It helps control your blood sugar, and it also helps for fat burning. That's what I like about it. So everything in moderation, you know how they say. Along the lines of brain chemistry, serotonin. How many of you guys know what serotonin is? Serotonin, so when somebody's, they go on an antidepressant, they inhibit the reuptake of the serotonin. They want to, have as much serotonin run free in the body as possible and in the brain so that they feel happy. It's the happy neurotransmitter, happy feel-good neurotransmitter. And where does the production, 80% of the production happen in? Does it occur in your brain or does it occur in your gut? In your gut, yeah. So if you're taking antibiotics or you've got a lot of sugar or you've got a bad diet, you're taking a lot of medications, your gut microbiome is shot. How do you expect it to make the neurotransmitters, the serotonin? You don't. So it would behoove us to understand that we always have to be working on maintaining that gut microbiome. It's an environment in and of itself, and there are so many benefits that we get from that we're not even aware of. So starting with your immune system, starting with your brain chemistry, serotonin production support, and it also helps your immune system. A good part of your immune system is supported from your gut. So again, one of these every single day, that's part of my regimen, that's part of my routine. You should be taking probiotics. Kids should be taking probiotics. This is just one of those basic foundational parts of our routine we should be doing. Bless you. I is for immunity, infection issues. N is for neurohormone deficiencies. We're going to kill two birds with one stone right here while we're on the subject of neurology. Your immune system and chiropractic care. How many of you are aware of a study that was done at New York University Cancer Research Center? They studied cancer patients, non-cancer patients, and non-cancer patients under chiropractic care for 5 years or more. And you know what they found? The people under chiropractic care 5 years or longer had immune systems that were how much? 300% stronger. That's why I said before, the people who are under care 5, 10, 15, 20 years, they can't remember the last time they got sick. They can't remember. And that the longer that you're under maintenance care, you're just coming in, not because you have a problem, but because you want to prevent problems, you'll notice this. Yeah, maybe your neck and your back isn't 100%, just like mine. Not a day that goes by that I got to be careful. Yeah, but the most important thing that I do chiropractic care for is so that I don't have to go to doctors and worry about taking medications. I haven't done that in over 35 years since I've been getting adjusted. None, zero, nada. Okay, so I have insurance just in case of an emergency, but that's all it's for. I create my own health as much as I can. You know, I'll do the best I can. I know God will do the rest, but I do my part. Everything that I recommend to you, eating good, exercising, getting adjusted, that's the most powerful proactive plan that you could have. Clear neurological function. Journal of Neurology and Neurosurgery and Psychiatry. Quoted, studies have shown that more than 50% of hyperthyroid patients have damage to the pathways in their what? In their nerve system. A few exceptions. Hormone deficiency or hormone excess is the result of pathologic manifestations in what? Neural pathways. Spinal lesions of the atlas. Did you learn about that tonight? No, that's right. Spinal lesions, bones out of alignment at C1 and C2 were associated with abnormal function of the pituitary gland, which resulted in abnormal, what? Hormonal secretions. So that's what you're seeing on the thing there. Testosterone, estrogen, all that has to do with a properly functioning nerve system. In fact, your brain controls everything in your body. All the hormones, how fast, how slow your heart goes, your digestion, everything is under the control of the brain. And the brain communicates with all the organs through what? Your nervous system. Yeah, your nervous system. The bones are there to protect that system. That communication pathway, there's nothing more important with that. Because if you don't have that, you're what? Dead. Yeah. That's what separates us from a corpse. A corpse has a brain, a corpse has a spinal cord, a corpse has organs. Everything that you see up there, a corpse has. What does a corpse have that you and I don't have? Life. Life. The expression of that intelligence that God breathed inside of you through that nerve system is the chiropractic meaning of life. And anything that interferes with it causes you to be less than all that God had created you to be. You got that? It's like a big dimmer switch. When you have subluxation interfering with your nervous system, depending on the level, it's just like a circuit breaker. Whatever part of the spine is involved, it'll cause problems at that level. At the top bone in the neck, ice picking, right? Or lesser, conditions, nervousness, insomnia, high blood pressure, mental breakdowns, chronic tiredness, dizziness, all from that C1. Why? It's on the brainstem. It affects hormonal secretions. It affects the pituitary gland. Outside the brain. But the brainstem is still part of the what? The brain. You just happen to have a bone that wraps around it and can interfere with it. The bottom part of the neck, people have problems at the bottom part of the neck, they go to the thyroid, the arms, the heart, the lungs. Down in the middle part of the back, you have the pancreas, which can cause problems with digestion, diabetes, gallbladder problems. You have the kidneys, which can interfere with detoxification, constipation from the lower back, reproductive problems. So there's not a health condition known to mankind that cannot be caused by subluxation. Subluxation is the cause of disease. Why do I say that? Because if there's an interference between the brain and the body, it's dis-ease. It's a lack of ease of the brain communicating with the organs and the organs back to the brain. The brain demands to know at all times what the body needs, where it needs it, how much of it needs. You guys follow me?
Yeah.
If the brain doesn't get that information, how can it keep the body healthy? And what is stopping that from happening? Misalignments in your spine that most of the time we don't feel. Why? Because the nerves that branch off between the bones, most of them are not pain sensitive. I was doing an exam today. Guy's like, oh, my arm is going numb. I have a herniated disc here. I'm like, okay. It's weak also. That's not good. So you definitely have a problem here because that's the nerve that goes down your arm. But did you know that those are the same nerves that go to your thyroid, your heart, and your lungs? He's like, okay, that makes sense. No, you're missing what I'm about to say here. Because only 6% of that nerve is what you feel, the numbness in your arm. The other 94% that you don't feel, which is enough to make your arm weak and numb, is also compromising the function of the heart, the lungs, and the thyroid. Did you get that? He was like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't think about that. You can't feel your heart losing function, can you? No. It only takes the weight of a dime on one of those nerves to shut down half the nerve supply through the nerve root. And people come in all the time with neck pain and back pain, and they can feel that, but what they can't feel was the last 10 years, the pressure on that nerve, shutting that down, and now they're coming in on the tail end of that, like you go to a dentist with a cavity. What about the loss of nerve supply to your organs? Isn't that the bigger consideration? And if that is the truth, and this is an anatomical fact, wouldn't it behoove us to be having our spines checked on a regular basis? Now, I'm preaching to the choir here, except for the guests, right? If you're a guest, like when's the last time you had your spine checked by a chiropractor? Your medical doctor is not going to check you for this condition. They're going to check you for lesions and tumors. And if there's not a problem, then they're not going to do anything. But what we're checking for is something to prevent that. And when we do that, and we run a thermal scan, regardless if you have pain or not, that thermography is going to show us if there's an abnormality or not, right? And if there is, it shows us what level it's happening at and what some of the possible consequences are. And so that's a scan on the left of an abnormal pattern. The scan on the right is a normal pattern. So if you're having symptoms, fatigue, tiredness, insomnia, poor sleep, colds, flus, neck or back pain, and you've never had your spine checked, that's probably a good way to find out why that's happening. If you don't have any of those problems, and you haven't had your spine checked in a long time, or ever, wouldn't you agree that it's probably a good idea to have that done every once in a while? It's just no different than going to a dentist. You want to do it preventatively because preventatively is a lot less painful and a lot less costly than having a root canal. Right or right?
Right.
That's why people have their spine checked. Now, we always correlate that with x-rays. And if the scans show us that there's a problem there, again, we don't guess. We get a set of x-rays and that shows us what's happening to correlate those tests. So if you're a guest here tonight and you've never had that done and you don't have a chiropractor and you'd like us to check you, please see Deborah over there before you leave. Normally the exam, the x-rays, consultation, the time that I sit down with you, all that is normally well over $300. As a guest here, we do that for only $47 because it's a donation to our mission to Haiti. So if you'd like to do that, if you're serious about your health, please by all means make that appointment with Deborah. The offer's only good tonight, and if you have any other questions, just let me know. All right, so finishing off, the people who left, they lost out because this is the most important part.
Uh-oh.
They missed out. This is the most important part. So D is for what? Diabetes. Kill the sugar before it what? Before it kills you. Okay, I want you to listen to this.
As you get older, have you ever wondered why you have less and less energy and begin to ache more and more? The answer, in part, is not age, but AGEs, or advanced glycation end products. AGEs are harmful compounds in the body that form when protein and excess sugar bind. AGEs not only contribute to the process of aging, but also to many other health issues that we experience. AGEs are part of life, and our body has ways to naturally defend against and dispose of these harmful compounds. Problems happen when we get a little crazy and overload the body with more than it can handle. It's a little like a bathtub. If you turn on the water and the pipes are clogged, the tub fills up. AGE levels are the same. If you're consuming AGEs faster than your body can dispose of them, then they overwhelm your body and can lead to some serious damage, both inside and out. AGEs are one of the causes for our aging. These harmful compounds can affect arteries, making them stiff and rigid. They can also cause wrinkles, damage tissue, or lead to even more serious issues. In fact, AGEs have been shown to play a key role in the development of several chronic diseases, like vision impairment, diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's, and kidney damage.
Okay, so what I want you to get from that is the ages is the effect of the proteins. Like every cell in your body, every part of your body, everything in your body works because of these proteins. And the proteins, depending on the different part of the body, is going to be determined by the three-dimensional shape that it needs to achieve. When sugar comes along and it binds to the protein, it deforms the protein. And when the protein becomes deformed, it can no longer carry out the function that it's supposed to. And these deformed proteins that they're talking about that come and coagulate and lose their function and have no function are called AGEs, advanced glycation end products. What is that? You ever see the dark spots, the age spots on your skin? Okay. That is exactly what's happening in your brain. And what it's being provoked by is sugar. So what they found is now with the advanced glycation effects with the sugar, they're finding a correlation now with diabetes and dementia. In fact, they're calling type 3 diabetes mild cognitive impairment. So it's beyond type 2 diabetes, the adult onset diabetes. If you've had that for a while and you get to the point where you're starting to forget things, you're already at the point of mild cognitive impairment, and that is what precedes Alzheimer's disease. But that comes with a particular condition known as what? Diabetes, which primarily is caused by sugar problem. We got that? So the Archives of Neurology at the Mayo Clinic study they found this. They said if diabetes began before a person was 65, the risk for mild cognitive impairment was increased by a whopping what? 220%. The risk of mild cognitive impairment in individuals who had diabetes for 10 years or longer was increased by what? 176%. If people were taking insulin, their risk was increased by 200%. So now you're starting to see the correlation between diabetes and Alzheimer's disease. Watch, it gets a little bit more clear. Journal of Alzheimer's disease, buildup of toxic proteins in the brain. Remember you saw that with the injury to the neck, right? So older people load up their plates with carbs have nearly 4 times the risk of developing cognitive impairment. There's an 89% greater likelihood of Alzheimer's for older patients who are still beating up the carbs and, like on a daily basis. So what are you looking at there? Breads, rice, pasta, cereals, and this is where we have to move away from. So I'm not going to get into all of the dietary recommendations. You can go home and Google search paleo diet. We'll go over more of that in the next workshop. But just know that the less of that you have on a daily basis, the more proactive you're being in preventing dementia, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease. All right? So the key predictor for whether or not you're moving toward dementia and Alzheimer's is A1C. I'm going to let that sink in for a minute. You ready? Okay. Hemoglobin, A1C, is the protein that's found where? In red blood cells. And when it binds with the sugar, that gives us the reading of the A1C. So that's how we get that. Now, if you look, you'll see below 5.7, pre-diabetes 5.7 to 6.4, 6.5 and higher. Obviously, we've been told to be under 6 to control our what? Our diabetes. But what does the research show? Strongest Alzheimer's correlations have been shown to be with any measurement of hemoglobin A1C over and above what? 6%. So this is why the A1C is important. We've thought about losing weight and reducing our diabetes, but I'd much rather prevent Alzheimer's than manage my diabetes. So that is the most important thing that we need to be concerned with this test. Changes in brain size and A1C. Watch this. Researchers looked at MRIs to determine which lab test correlated best with brain atrophy. Found that A1C demonstrated the most powerful relationship. Comparing the degree of brain tissue loss in those individuals with the lowest hemoglobin A1C, 4.4 to 5.2, right there, to those having the highest hemoglobin A1C, 5.9 to 9.0, the brain loss in the individuals with the highest hemoglobin A1C was doubled during a 6 years period if they were over 5.9. It's almost a done deal. So how important is it to know where our glucose is? How important is it to know where our insulin levels are? How important is it to know where our A1C is? Well, this is what it's about, guys. We talked about everything that we were here to learn about tonight with dementia, Alzheimer's. This is what it boils down to. If you're pre-diabetic, you probably don't know it. But if you're not being proactive, you're moving in that direction. If you're diabetic and you know it, now this is where the rubber meets the road. You have a bigger reason to get a move on with this, right? This brings a whole new relationship to what we have to do. We got to kill the sugars before they kill what? Kill who? Kill you, yes. Kill the sugars before it kills you. Any of these things. Read the labels, guys. If you see that all the sugars are in the label, you got to go for a healthier option. All of these sugars lurk deep within those labels. The tomato ketchup, the tomato sauce that we use in, spaghetti sauce, the breads, the juice, the high fructose corn syrup. So it's there. And it drives inflammation. It's driving our A1C. And that is one of the biggest killers at all of them. Yes? No, not the natural sugars. Not the natural sugars. Low sugar fruits we always recommend are Granny Smith apples, all the berries, blackberries, blueberries, strawberries. Yeah, you don't want to go crazy. Like if you have a big bowl of fruit, that's going to have, not so good effect. Yeah. But not the same as this, though. This is a different category. All right. Last but not least, S is for sleep. Wash your brain and eliminate its trash nightly. Take the trash out. It's a brainwashing. That's what it is. It's a brainwashing. You get to wash your brain when you sleep. And this was something that I read from a prominent leader lately that said his order of priority when he feels that his health is escaping him. The first order of business is how much sleep am I getting? Am I not paying attention to my nutrition? How's my exercise going? And the number one thing that he would audit with his weekly routine is his sleep. So you guys know what I'm talking about. You could be living life ragged, on the edge. You can keep pushing it from one day to the next. But the one day that you get a really good night's sleep and you wake up the next day, you're nicer to people. You're happy. It's a good day. And you know what? Quite frankly, we should have more days like that, right? Or right? You deserve that, right? Turn to your neighbor and say, you deserve that. You deserve that. Proper night's sleep. Washes your brain, eliminates its trash. Most experts agree. How many hours should you be getting? 8 hours. Yeah, you should be getting 8 hours. And as the week goes on, you notice that when it gets less and less, you start to feel it. Cool and dark. That AC should be down there. 74, 73, 72 degrees. No light at all. The cooler and the darker, the better. And a consistent schedule is really important too. If you're going to sleep at 11:30 one night, and then the next night you're going to sleep at 9, and then the next night you're going to sleep at 1, and you're getting up at different times in the morning, that's not a consistent schedule. Getting in bed the same time, winding down, not watching TV, not having any EMFs going in your brain, scrambling your brain, get in bed with a book, get to sleep at a certain point, get to know your body, know your regular sleep schedule, and make sure you're sleeping at a certain time. For me, it's before 10. Nothing good happens after 10 o'clock. It's hard for me to get up after that. If I'm getting up at 5:15, if I don't get to bed before 10, I'm feeling it by Wednesday, So you guys know your body. Be good to yourself. Consistent schedule. Last meal, don't go to bed on a full stomach. That's not a good idea. You need a good 2 to 3 hours. That's one of the things that irks me about getting out of church on Sunday night. Like last night, My son preached at our church, which was awesome.
Oh,
Everybody's
wow.
standing, yeah.
Nice.
And I forgot about dinner. I got home, I didn't have dinner until after 8 o'clock. For me, that's a no-no, but all right, I'll take that one. That's okay. But I like eating dinner 7 o'clock or before. At least 2 to 3 hours before you fall asleep. Make sure that last meal is done. All right, so what's more important than information? Application. Yes, information without application is hallucination. So make sure, the most important thing I told you when we first started is I'm going to recommend these things to you. And if you're serious about your health, take the next step and do something proactive. There's a lot of things we talked about: the vitamin D, the inflammation testing, the DNA testing, the detox testing. If you're a guest here and you want to have your spine checked, there's an appointment for that. But if you're curious about the testing and you want to find out more of that or schedule that, talk to Deborah. If you want to make an appointment to see me to check your spine, see Deborah over there. Deborah, can you raise your hand just so everybody knows where you're at? For those of you who just want to go up there and get your supplements and get your 15% off, it's the only time we discount our supplements, and we're happy to do that. So all the supplements that I talked to you about, again, that support brain health. That's what's in your flyer there, and all that together is eligible for a 15% discount when per purchase together. Somebody told me tonight, Bruce, you wrote us a nice 5-star review. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
I gave you a shirt.
And you got a shirt to Bruce. You deserve that. But what I told Bruce was that people read those, and when people read a rave review, they're more likely to go to that place, and because they come here and we have an opportunity to change their life, you've really done something good for humanity. How many of you guys would agree you learned something life-changing tonight?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, if you can't tell anybody, write a review. It gets read, and that's another way to make an impact out there. So if you do that, we have no problem bribing you. We'll give you a 25% gift certificate off of any of the supplements if you want. Please think about that. That means a lot to us, and of course to the people that you come in and they start under care. At any rate, I know this was a little long-winded tonight. I had a lot of stuff I was really excited about. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much for coming in tonight. Love and appreciate you guys. God bless.